With the first episode being very good, does that mean that the rest of the season can hold up despite the bad reviews the show has been getting? Let's find out. Hey guys, remember the first season of Haters Back Off? Yes, I have actually finished it. It's actually been a week since Haters Back Off came on, which is interesting how long it took me to watch it. I thought it was going to take me a lot shorter, but I had no time this week. I've been very busy all week, and finally I was able to finish it today. Let's talk about the show, because as you guys know, I actually really did love the first episode. I was very surprised, even though the show was getting very mediocre to negative reviews. I really was impressed by the first episode, and I was really hoping that it wasn't just a fluke, because I was worried. I was thinking, okay, even though there was a good introduction, many shows have had that. There have been many shows that have had really good first episodes, and then the rest of the episodes don't hold up. And I was worried that Haters Back Off would turn out that way. But, to my surprise, while this isn't really, I'd say, a perfect season, because it's definitely not, Haters Back Off actually got better as it went on, and really became the show that I really was hoping it would be, and luckily it did in fact stick to that has incredible messages of what it means to be famous, and, someone's ego and what that can do to a person, and really delve deep into that, and I really did love that overall. But let's just get into this first season. I'm going to talk about episodes 2 through 8, everything that happened in those episodes. I'm going to talk about what I like, what I didn't like, and let's just get into that right now. So we go into episode 2 after the whole thing with Emily went down, with Emily posing as those fans who were bad-mouthing, Miranda's videos and everything. Now Miranda has all these people coming after her, and the way that she pictures this is like a horror movie is honestly really interesting the way to do that. It's one of the most interesting things about this season is just the way that something like that affects her is crazy. It really is, but the way they do that, you kind of understand why it does. I mean, she's lived her entire life just around fame, and you definitely do see that. But she decides that because she's getting all these bad reviews and people clearly are not liking her videos, she decides she's just going to quit. I mean, that is how pathetic Miranda is in a bunch of the season. And for me, it worked. You're not supposed to like this character. I definitely understood that. You're not really supposed to like her. You're not supposed to agree with the choices she's making. She's living completely the wrong life, and I was perfectly fine with that, with the way she's doing things. Because again, this is an origin story. This is how Miranda Sings became who we know her to be today. And I thought they did that pretty well here. But basically, after doing that, she decided she's going to try to pursue fame in other areas, and one way to do that is by joining this choir, basically. She wants to join this choir, but obviously she has no talent whatsoever, and it is so bad that she doesn't even call herself Miranda. She runs into this guy, Owen, I think his name was? Yeah, Owen, that was his name. This guy, Owen, who she clearly does have a crush on. She's with Patrick, she sees him, and he is this very, he's this very talented guitar player. He's kind of conceited, though, you can definitely tell. He's very stuck up, and he kind of just wants her for fame. You definitely do see that, and she very much starts to like him, and I liked the bonding that these two definitely had, but this starts to make Patrick very jealous. We start to see, we'll get more into that in a little bit later, but, Owen and Miranda, they start to connect, but the pastor of the church, Keith, he realizes the problems that Miranda's causing because she basically is just bad. She is talking shit about everyone. She is saying, oh, I'm the best. You have no idea what we're talking about. There's this girl there that's telling her, to stay in the back because she clearly isn't, has no talent whatsoever, but Miranda doesn't see that. So Keith ends up kicking her out of the church, and obviously, this really does upset Miranda, obviously, because, she really did want to pursue the church and everything, but, she clearly can't sing in the church, and she basically makes it her mission after this to try to make Owen fall in love with her. And we see Jim, meanwhile, he's now moved on. We see basically why Jim wants to help Miranda. Apparently, when he was in high school, he did this color guard performance, and it really was embarrassing for him, and he doesn't want the same thing to happen to her. He gave up his dream to follow hers, and I thought it was interesting the way we saw that. But Jim ends up losing his job at this We see he ends up losing his job. He's a car dealer, and he ends up losing his job there. He actually sells his car for $500, which is pretty crazy. But again, he's doing all this stuff just for his niece. It's pretty insane the way that was done. And we see the choir's performing and everything, and, Miranda starts to call everyone a hater at the end of this, and Jim ends up giving the $500 to the fish store manager to get his job back, but Miranda arrives, says she actually is deciding to go back on the internet because this clearly isn't working for her. So Jim quits his job, realizing that she is going to continue to do what she wants to do, and that's basically everything that goes down in episode 2. Episode 2 was really good. I really did enjoy it overall. I thought, like I said, there was some really funny moments in this episode, and in general did a good job of getting us into Miranda's psyche. Now, by far, my least favorite episode this entire season is actually episode 3, Networking at the Nursing Home, because while this episode, I think, did have some good moments, I didn't really find it funny. I found it to be in a completely different area, and it just seemed really ridiculous and really dumb, honestly. I mean, something that they did well with Miranda's character in the first 2 episodes is that they were able to show us that while Miranda is obsessed with fame, she does in fact have limits and she does have boundaries, but she clearly doesn't in this episode, because this episode involves her and Emily. They're going to this retirement home to visit their aunt, who apparently is their favorite aunt, and Emily basically wants Miranda to go there to realize how she can pursue her talents in other ways, because obviously Emily knows she's not talented, but she knows that Miranda loves to sing, and she's trying to find ways for Miranda to, sing without without being bashed, and she feels this is a way to do that. Old people love anything, and that's what, she wants her to do. Miranda, on the other hand, decides to make this all about her. She basically talks about how all these people are going to die, and how they need to sign her a contract. She wants to, there's this director there that she's trying to get apart from, and Uncle Jim and her make it their mission, and this is one of my least favorite parts of the season. A lot of the season revolves around Uncle Jim trying to, and Miranda going about this 7-week plan that he has for her, and this one really did not work. It felt very filler. I did like Emily stepping in to save them, because obviously Miranda goes way overboard. I mean, she talks about how they're all going to die and how she's just there for fame, but Emily does in fact save them in the end. I like seeing that overall. I thought that was nice to see Emily save them. She ends up singing, Amazing Grace, I believe the song was, if I remember correctly. No, Danny Boy, actually. She sings Danny Boy, and basically, we see that, we see that Emily does end up saving them, thank God. But again, I just thought Miranda wasn't out of character in this episode. It was just a lot more mean-spirited than the other episodes were. I don't think the other episodes were that mean-spirited. This one definitely seemed like it was, and it just really wasn't that funny to me. However, this does include by far one of the funniest scenes in the entire season, which involves Miranda. She goes to Bob, who is that old movie director, and she gets in touch with his nephew, who she thinks is working at an industrial job, but it actually is Ben Stiller on the phone. She completely rejects him. Just the fact they were able to get Ben Stiller just for this one scene, I thought was absolutely hilarious. I love that, and that kind of stuff I thought was really funny. They did that really well, and just the fact that Miranda was so naive that she didn't even realize that this was the Ben Stiller, and that's the way she could have easily pursued fame. I thought it was really stupid. I thought it was really funny. It was stupid funny, but it worked really well, and I thought overall that definitely was funny to see. I liked the way that went. But there's 2 other big things going on in this episode. First of all, we see Keith and, Bethany. These 2 are starting to get a lot closer. After Keith has rejected Miranda, he starts to get close to Bethany. He sees, what she has and everything. He sees that she is, in fact, a hypochondriac, which that is what she is. I couldn't think of what the word was, but she is, in fact, a hypochondriac. She always thinks, and if you don't know what that means, she thinks there's always something wrong with her. So these 2 start to get closer. But then you have Patrick, who he's starting to get jealous of Owen, and he confronts Owen, who can tell that Owen clearly does not have the same feelings that Patrick has for Miranda, so he doesn't even know what he's talking about. And again, he doesn't even know Miranda's real name. He calls her Amanda, for God's sake. Like, he clearly does not give a shit about her, and Patrick, I think, sees that, but at the same time, he's still very jealous. I mean, this is the girl that he really cares about, and that he's always seen as more than, he's always seen as kind of like his end game. So you honestly are really rooting for Patrick in this situation. They did a good job with that, and I thought overall, episode 3, like I said, while it was the weakest of the season, I did enjoy it overall. I thought it was fun. Just a lot of the humor, I thought they really took it a bit too far. I mean, it's one thing for Miranda to focus on fame and things like, because that's her character, but when she's talking about death and how all these people are going to die, that is how you make someone dislike a character, and I don't want to dislike her character. I've liked Miranda up to this point, and I think that kind of salvaged a lot of what made that character good in the first 2 episodes, is what happened there. Luckily, the rest of the episodes make up for it, because after episode 4, that is when this series really takes off. I think episodes 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are almost all completely perfect. I loved everything about most of these episodes, and I was very happy to see it. The rest of the episodes I really think are genuinely great. Episode 4 is essentially how Miranda Sings becomes Miranda Sings. You know, basically, the way they did that, though, was actually really clever. She goes on this tour with, this road trip, actually, with Uncle Jim and with Patrick. They go to this venue for her to perform at this concert, and this is where she comes up with her alter ego, Miranda Sings. I like the way that she actually came up with that. I thought it was kind of cool to see that, and that's something they can take advantage of here. Like I said, this is an origin story, and they did that pretty well here, definitely. And I did like seeing, you know, off the bat that you see that she is at this venue, and this is also how she gets the, costume that we, of course, know her to wear, the infamous costume, you know, the button-down shirt and the red pants. We found out how she got that, which I thought was, again, kind of silly the way she got it, but I thought overall was funny. I liked the way that that was done. Jim actually ended up lending her his red sweatpants, which is interesting to see. We definitely do see. That was interesting, the way that that all turned out, and basically, we see Miranda. She ends up performing all that jazz, and obviously it's terrible, but it's so bad that the audience think that it was supposed to be funny, and she starts laughing. She thinks they're laughing with her. She thinks it was a success, and that's really when things start to take off. You see her and Patrick are getting closer. He really is liking her, and I did really like that episode overall. I thought there was some really good stuff in that one, and there was some good subtle stuff at, what was really going to happen. You know, we see Jim and Patrick actually end up winning the competition as a comedy trio, but Miranda's angry because she wants to be the solo sing act. She doesn't want to be in a trio of any time. You know, she wants to do this whole thing on her own, but Jim picks up the 100 prize and basically takes it for both of them to use, and you see that she, again, really wants to use it for herself, but I thought overall it was interesting to see, and I did like the way that that episode was done. But then we also have the subplot going on with Bethany and Emily, where Emily's starting to get very suspicious of Keith. He's acting very strange. You know, they've rushed into this relationship, which I was going to say right off the bat, I thought the relationship was very rushed, but it seemed like it was supposed to be, because he's sniffing her, bandages, he's obsessed with her wheelchair. She starts to think that there's something different going on with Keith, that he is not as interested, that he isn't really interested in Bethany, but more interested in the illness that she has, and that he actually has a fetish for that, and we'll get more into that in episode 7, but overall, episode 4 I thought was really good. Episode 5 is the first perfect episode of the show. Everything but episode 5, I loved. I thought episode 5 was absolute perfection. It was funny. It was told this really great story, but also was very serious, and it really starts to touch upon the fact of Bethany and Miranda's relation, which is one of the most compelling parts of this entire season. Bethany is a character who immediately you feel bad for. I mean, she is a hypochondriac, but she also is slowly losing control of her daughter, and it's sad to see the way that Jim can kind of controls Miranda. Not controls Miranda necessarily, but he does kind of always have his hand in the pot more than, someone like a Bethany does. Bethany clearly, wants Miranda. We see that Bethany ends up editing one of Miranda's videos, and she suggested they do a home production of Annie, which I guess is something that they always do, and Miranda usually plays all the parts, and I kind of took this as Bethany knows Miranda has no talent, so she tries to give her talent just to please her and just to be a good mother, and we definitely do see that here. That's something they did very well. So this really sets up the basic conflict of this episode, which is that, like I said, Bethany is losing control of Miranda. Immediately, when she decides to do Annie, Uncle Jim has a completely different vision. And Miranda, being the fame whore that she is, decides to go with Uncle Jim's vision. Because again, he has her fixated on this 7-week plan. She feels this is going to help her, so she's just going to go do whatever he tells her to do. His rewrites to Annie are completely ridiculous. He you can tell doesn't really know the story. He thinks that he basically is Annie, but without all the heartwarming, stuff that Annie really does have. He has the Daddy Warbucks and Annie in a relationship. He has, like I said, Daddy Warbucks is actually her love interest, which is very strange, and Annie in general is just very, very over the top, and it's not at all what Bethany wants. You can see throughout the entire episode that his vision really is clouding Bethany's vision, and them going back and forth about that, I thought was overall really interesting. The fact that he's so focused on Annie when he's not overlooking, when he's completely overlooking the bigger problem, which is something as small as their toilet not working and their toilet being backed up. This is something that Jim hasn't really focused on. He's been so fixated on Miranda, and Bethany feels she doesn't really have a role in Miranda's life, and it's something that she's really starting to realize here. And I thought Angela Kinsey absolutely killed it in this episode. She killed throughout this entire season, but this episode especially really killed it, and you really did see the anguish and just emotion in her. You could really tell that why, she kind of makes up these things. I feel like she kind of does this to herself because she wants, Miranda to kind of help her. She wants Miranda to be there for her. She wants Miranda to play a role in her life, and the only way for her to be able to do that is to fake what's going on, which is very sad, obviously, but that very much seems like what's going on, and definitely that was sad to see. They end up getting an actual actor for the role of Daddy Warbucks. He's horrified by the entire thing, so he ends up leaving. Meanwhile, Emily's friend comes into the picture, and Emily, of course, as you know, Miranda's homeschooled. Emily's not homeschooled. So Emily decides to make it so Emily's friend Clay doesn't know that her and Miranda are related. She wants Clay to think they're just there for an audition and that she doesn't really want a part of this. Clay's interested. Emily's not really interested. Emily gets casted like a tree or something, but she wants Clay to, make sure that, she wants Clay to think that her and Miranda are not related. And I thought it was a very interesting plot point, and it made sense too. I mean, it protects her. It kind of protects Miranda as well. It keeps Clay from, judging them and things like that. So I liked seeing the way this was done. But then we get to the ending of the episode, which gets really emotional very fast. We see, again, that the cast list comes out, and like I said, the actor ends up declining the role as Daddy Warbucks because he's horrified by what's going on, and Patrick ends up stepping in because he wants to get that first kiss with Miranda. He feels this will get him closer to her, especially because he feels like he's losing her because of Owen, and he'll do what he can to hold on to her. And these two actually do end up getting quite close. We definitely do see that. But Bethany does end up ruining the situation when she finally tells Jim that she's sick of this, that she wants to have a role in Miranda's life. She wants to be able to be in her own, daughter's life, but she feels like she doesn't have one. And she feels like she's completely outnumbered because she is outnumbered. And it's this really emotional scene full of gravitas, and I really did love the way that whole scene was done. But things get even worse when Emily finally says to Bethany, because she feels so bad about what's going on between Bethany and Miranda, she feels she has to step in. She tells Bethany to calm down. She calls her mom, and this gets Clay to realize that they are in fact related, that Miranda and Emily are in fact sisters, and that Emily has been lying this entire time, and basically gets us on the dark path the show starts heading on after this episode. But it was a very necessary one. I mean, the way that the show was treating these characters, it made sense we were going to go on this dark path, and I thought it was very well executed the way that it was done. There were some very funny scenes, like I said, in this episode, though. I don't want you guys to think this is just a dark episode, because it's not. There were some very funny scenes going on here. Some of the funniest of the entire season. I mean, some of the scenes of the auditions, the scenes with us finding out that Uncle Jim literally has a toilet in his room is completely absurd, but I thought that was definitely funny to see. And just the changes he made to Annie overall was just a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this episode. Very devastating end, but I think it really is the catalyst for the end of the season. And that really brings us into episode 6, which is really a game-changing episode. It's the first episode where Miranda really does not want Uncle Jim to play a role in her life. She wants to do this pretty much all on her own. We definitely see that. And it starts with something very simple, as Miranda making this video tutorial called Free Voice Lesson, which Jim thinks will be a hit if she uploads it, but Miranda is very solely against it. She feels it will reveal her talent. She feels that it will get everyone to realize, why she sings the way she does, and she just feels it's not a good idea. to upload it. She feels it's going to give away her vocal secrets or lack of vocal secrets. And we see Patrick, he's very excited about this upcoming audition at a Magic's club, and Miranda thinks that it is taking too long, for her to get famous, so Patrick actually offers to teach her some magic and let her audition in his place, and she basically wants Uncle Jim to be completely left out, which I did kind of feel bad for him in that regard, but at the same time, it made sense. I mean, he's kind of making her life a living hell, and he's not doing what she wants him to do, and he's going against the plan very much so. We definitely do see that, and especially after what happened with Bethany, you can tell that things really have changed there. We see Emily, she's now locking herself in her room. She's not talking to anyone. She's not doing anything. We don't know what exactly she's doing, but she's completely locked in her room. She's like isolating herself from everyone, and Bethany starts to see what's happened there, and there's this great scene with Bethany and Uncle Jim where they're in a bed together, and they're basically just talking about, how they are basically losing control of both Bethany and of Miranda, and they don't really know what to do, but they're going to try to do it together. Just a really good scene overall. I definitely really did like that, and I did like the way that was done. In the end, though, we see that Emily, we find out, is actually painting. She actually is painting alone in the garage is what she's doing. She's not eating, we see, which is very interesting the way we saw that. Jim does fix the plumbing, which I did like seeing that he did, in fact, fix the plumbing because it seemed like something that wasn't going to happen. But he does move in with Bethany, which is something that she's completely disgusted about, obviously. But we see backstage, Patrick tells Bethany that the audition is closed and that she must leave, and Miranda could be disqualified. But Bethany feels this the opportunity to reconnect with Miranda, and for these two to finally maybe get the bond back that she wants them to have. But then the unthinkable happens where Miranda's performing a magic act, and obviously it's not really going well. And the second that Miranda, she puts a sword in, she actually ends up sending both Patrick and Bethany to the hospital. Patrick seems like he's okay, but Miranda just does not care about Bethany. She wants to stay with Patrick. She doesn't care how Bethany's doing. And again, it's just sad to see, but Miranda clearly does not care about her mother, and we definitely do see that. She wants, Bethany to stay how she is. She's a Patrick, but meanwhile, we see that Bethany is facing her own problems when we realize that not only is Bethany stabbed, obviously, the doctors have actually found a kidney abnormality, and it might actually make Bethany could possibly die from it. And this really was a fantastic twist, because this entire season, Bethany has been making up, diseases and things that are wrong with her, and for the first time in her life, she actually has a reason to need someone. She actually does have something that she genuinely needs, and it's something that Bethany really hasn't had. She's trying to cling to her daughter. She's trying to stay close to her, and now realizing that she actually has this kidney abnormality, it really sets up episode 7 really well, which episode 7 I thought was a very well done episode. It brings a lot of the original plots back into the forefront here, and I really did love the way that was done. Basically, episode 7 is about this parade float that Uncle Jim's rival is going to be on, and he always wanted to start a relationship with her. I can't remember what her name was, but he always wanted to start this relation with her, and he wants Miranda to participate, so they end up building this float called the Homeschooler, and that's basically what ends up happening in episode 7. It kind of reconnects these two. We definitely do see that these two kind of do get reconnect. Jim actually ends up winning the parade, which again really upsets Miranda because this was supposed to be her moment. He keeps stealing her moments, and this obviously is very much pissing her off. She wants to be in the spotlight, and he keeps stealing it from her, and she doesn't really understand why. Then we get to the other stuff going on, which has to do with Emily, Bethany, and Keith. Basically, Bethany realized in this episode that Keith really does not love her, that he just has a fetish for sick people, and that's really what it is. It's just him trying to help her in a time of need, and he's clearly is obsessed with sick people, which is very strange, but there actually are people like that out there, believe it or not. And Emily, meanwhile, she is planning on going to this art school, this very prestigious art school that she very much has a passion in. And the second that she went there, I knew something was going to go wrong. I mean, she gets to the art school, everything seems fine, but then she looks at the paintings and she realizes that not only is the paintings not all what she did, but all of her work is ruined. Miranda has painted every single one of them. It's all Miranda stuff now. And this pretty much ruins everything between Emily and Miranda, the relationship they had, and that really sets up the season finale. finale overall. It's a very devastating episode, but that really sets us up for what is a very depressing season finale, which I'll get into. So I will get into the season finale in just a little bit because there's a lot to talk about that goes on in that, but let's talk first about the season overall, because I do have some complaints about the season that I will in fact address. First of all, I think the acting was great in the show. Everyone was perfectly casted. I thought they really did a great job with the acting. I was worried that it was going to be very, very Miranda-centric, but they did a really good job of getting into Bethany's character and getting into Emily's character almost as much as Miranda did. And I think they did a really good job with that. I also really liked Erik Stocklin as Patrick. I thought he was really good. You know, Miranda's best friend. You're really rooting for this guy because he genuinely does love her. He loves her. Even though she has no talent, he loves her despite that, and you really do believe in that relationship, and I like the way that was done. My biggest problem with this season, though, is the character of Uncle Jim. Now, look, like I said in my review of the first episode, I think Steve Little is great as this character. You can tell he's having a great time. You can tell that they very well casted him, and he could be a very interesting character. My problem is most of the season comes off as very cartoony and very annoying, and I just couldn't really get into his character. The reason he gives for helping Miranda is fine, but we don't really get into him as a character. He's more of Miranda's mentor throughout this entire season, and I get it that these two are clashing throughout the season, but I just kind of wanted more going on with him. I found him to be very cartoony and very silly, and I feel like they didn't really take him as seriously as they wanted us to, and I feel like they could have definitely done more with him, and definitely he kind of was a bit of a problem for me. I think they definitely could have gone a different direction with his character. My other complaint is that not every joke lands. A lot of the jokes actually don't land as well as you think they do. But as the season went on, it really did get funnier and funnier. I think most of the jokes landed actually pretty well. I was surprised by how well some of the jokes landed. And they really did keep the spirit of the YouTube videos in there. I liked that most of the episodes started off with her making a YouTube video and us seeing what she goes through. It was kind of cool to get into that. I really did like that overall. That was definitely interesting. And the writing in the show was so good. I was surprised by how good the writing was. But like I said, the season in general really was built upon the idea of fame and being in control and really how narcissistic of a character Miranda really is and how naive she is that she is so narcissistic. I mean, I think she knows she's kind of narcissistic, but at the same time, you see this kind of innocent nature to her, and it's kind of interesting the way they did that, and I thought they did a really good job with it overall. But those are just a few things I want to talk about before I get into the season finale. Let's just get into the finale because there's a lot to talk about that goes on, and if I don't talk about it now, I will be here for 3 hours, and I don't want to do that. But with all that said, let's just get into the finale. If you guys have not seen the finale of Hair's Back Off, major spoilers here. There is a lot that goes down in this episode. If you guys haven't seen it, it's probably the most spoiler-filled episode of the entire season. Now, let me just say that I knew going into this episode that things were going to get dark. I mean, it seemed like we were heading this very dark direction, but I did not expect how tragic, how just depressing, and how overly dark the show really did get. But I really do applaud the show for going in that direction because this was everything I wanted the show to be when I first heard of Hair's Back Off. What we got in this episode is what I was hoping we would get from a Miranda Sings show, and I loved everything about what they did in this last episode. And mainly it's because we finally got into Miranda's psyche in a way that we didn't really get to do much this season. That's another complaint I had. If it not been for this episode, that would have been a complaint, but this episode completely made up for that. Let's just get into it, though. Basically, Miranda and Patrick, after the whole magic thing, they got very close in episode 7. They got very close on that flow to the point where Miranda actually kissed Patrick and agreed to go on a date with him. And he is doing everything he can to make this date as perfect as possible. Even some of the most ridiculous demands that she has, like her wanting a horse and her wanting all this ridiculous shit, he is still giving in to her. And it's because of the fact that he loves her so much. And it really to show how great of a guy Patrick really is for her and why Miranda would love to should be very grateful to have someone like that. But then we get to Owen. He ends up coming into the picture. We'll get into that in a second. But one of the biggest parts of this episode obviously does deal with Emily. Emily and Miranda's relationship is kind of ruined now. I mean, she's trying to tell her, look, I was trying to help you, but Emily is tired of putting up with Miranda's bullshit. She's tired of feeling like the only normal one there. I mean, she's been the one to break up fights. She's basically been the head of everything, and she just doesn't want to do it anymore. She wants to be able to live her own life, and she's actually going to live with their dad, which Bethany clearly isn't happy with. We don't know much about their dad or, like, anything that went on between him and Bethany. We just know that Bethany obviously is not happy that, that's where Emily's headed. But she goes off to live with her dad, and, Owen comes up to Miranda, who he's still calling her Amanda, and again, we can tell he doesn't really give a shit about her, but basically, he tells her that he's throwing this party, well, he's actually going to be throwing this party, and he wants her to perform, and she takes this as the perfect opportunity that Owen's going to ask her out, and she decides to actually cancel on Patrick, mainly because, Owen's just more famous, and it's going to give her more of what she wants, and this really upsets Patrick. Like, we've never seen Patrick in this upset, really, and I think they did a really good job with that. Really, every character is pushed to their breaking point in this episode, and I love that. I mean, I know it's only the first season, but really, every character was pushed to their breaking point. Patrick has this great scene where he takes this popsicle stick thing he made of him, Miranda. He starts destroying it. It's just very sad to see, because you could tell that he really did want to have a relation with her. He was everything that, she probably needed. We'll get in more into that, but we do also get more into Bethany in this episode. She really is not looking well. She's taking pills now, and she's very scared that no one's on her side and that she could possibly die because of the whole kidney replacement thing. Then comes the whole thing with Uncle Jim. Uncle Jim decides to take Miranda. He thinks is going to be her next big gig and everything. I mean, he's trying to tell her that she needs to focus on YouTube, making tutorials, making all that kind of stuff. But she doesn't want to do that. He's very by the book, but she wants to do her own thing. She's not going to listen to him. And things really do get bad once he actually does upload the singing lessons video that she specifically told him not to upload. And you understand why. I mean, this basically gives away her singing career. She feels that this is just not at all what's going to service her, and we finally get to see the Uncle Jim that I've been wanting to see all season. Not this ridiculous cartoony Uncle Jim, but an Uncle Jim that clearly does care about Miranda. I mean, even though he did screw her over so many times this season, you see that he really did care about her, and especially the scene where Emily tells Miranda, you shouldn't go to Owen, it's going to be a bad idea. The fact that he finally treats Emily like she's actually in the right, and not just like she's completely wrong about everything, it shows how human this character really is. He clearly is there for Miranda. He clearly does want to help her, but he also wants the best for her. He's not just there to make her life a living hell. He's there to do what she wants, but he's also there to give her a good life. And I like seeing that overall. I like that he was on Emily's side there, but she actually ends up firing Uncle Jim because he uploads that video, and she's very much against him because of that, so he leaves. Very sad to see. Things get even worse, though, once we get to Owen's party, which essentially we realize actually him proposing to his girlfriend, which Miranda takes completely the wrong way. She thinks he's going to propose to her, and, that's obviously not what happened. She ends up performing the song, and basically this is when Miranda realizes that she's nothing more than a laughing stock, and that all Owen did is to generate, people to come. She gives people... She makes people laugh, and she starts really realizing they're not laughing with her. They are, in fact, laughing at her, and this is something that she gets really upset about. And we get this amazing scene from her where she says straight out to them, and this is a genuinely emotional scene. She says, why do you find love funny? Do you not want me to be in love? Why do you find this funny? And it's this great moment where you realize that the reason Miranda has been doing everything that she's been doing is really because she just wants someone to love her for who she is, not someone who's going to ridicule her, not someone who's going to leave bad comments on her YouTube page, someone who will generally love her. But the worst part is she just shunned the person that loved her the most. The one person that really does care about her, she's completely rejected. In fact, everyone that cares about her, she's pushed away. And this is Miranda realizing what she's done wrong, and she comes home, it's raining. She ends up getting disqualified because she just can't accept that it's real. She can't accept that Owen doesn't love her, and it's just really sad to see. But then she comes home to Bethany, and after so much of Bethany holding back and staying very resilient and just trying to be very calm about everything, she finally lets out how she feels about Miranda. She says straight out, look, I could die. I was taking pills. Miranda's upset that she wasn't at the concert. And Bethany says straight out that you're selfish, and No one seems to care of me, and she even says she doesn't feel comfortable in the house, so Bethany's now leaving. That relationship is ruined too. We get to the end of the episode. Miranda then looks at all of the YouTube comments, and she sees that at first there seems to be getting positive response, but then everything goes negative, and everything seems like, this is not what Miranda should be doing. She's obviously very upset. Then we hear a phone ring. We don't know who it is, but that is the way the season ends, and overall, I thought this was a perfect finale. I loved everything about this finale. I thought, like I said, this was the best episode the show has given us, and it really did make up for everything we got this season. I really did love everything about this. I thought it was just a fantastic way to end it, and it was so realistic in the way it was done, and that was something that really did surprise me, is how real things really did get. And with things being that way, I really have no idea where Season 2 is going to go. I will say that. That being said, I loved everything this episode did, because now I feel like we're going to get a much different type of Miranda. Now, I think the show is going to get a Season 2. I very much think that. Colleen Ballinger has been very passionate about the show. She wants the show to do well, and I think she will do everything in her power to get a Season 2. I do see us going in a much more character-based direction. Maybe focusing more on the characters and themselves and less on the relationships. I think we're going to see a lot more of Uncle Jim's past. I think we're going to find out more about Bethany. Just all that stuff that's going on. I think overall, we're definitely going to get more into that. So I definitely am looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with that. I'm thinking that Patrick is the one that called Miranda. I'm thinking that he's really going to be the one to save her. He's going to be the one that tells her, look, I do care about you. I do love who you are, because he loves her for all of her flaws. Even though she has all these flaws, and even though she is very annoying at points, he loves her for it, and he really does care about her, and you really do feel that is a genuine relationship. They did a really good job establishing that. Miranda, I think, is starting to realize, though, that she's not that great. I think she's really starting to realize that. She had this rude awakening, and that is something that we never got from the YouTube videos. People have said, oh, this show is completely unnecessary. We never knew that Miranda wanted love, and that is why she wanted fame as much as she did, because she wants someone to love her, and Patrick is the one that will love her, and I can't wait to see the way that's going to go. But either way, guys, at the end of the day, I honestly really did love the season. I was very surprised with how good it turned out, and I am going to give Hairs Back Off a 4 out of 5 or a B+, only because, like I said, there were those few complaints that I had, with Uncle Jim and with them not diving deeper into Miranda's psyche, but the finale really, really made up for it. I almost gave this an A-, so I'm like, whoa, let's just pump the brakes a bit, because I know this show can do better. I know this is not the best the show is going to do. I know there's still more the show can give me, and that is enough for reason for me to want to check out another season. I really hope the show gets another season, because I'm honestly very interested in seeing where the show could go from here after it does such a huge twist like the one it did in episode 8. And honestly, I do think that 8 episodes was enough. I didn't say this before, but I think they did do a good job with these 8 episodes. And again, like I said, if you don't like Miranda Sings already, you're not going to like her more than you did then. But, you'll still, I think if you're a fan of her, you definitely should check this out, because I overall was very happy with this season. But over, guys, to my review. Let me know what you guys thought of this season overall. Love to hear your thoughts on it. What did you think of the way it ended? Where do you think we're heading to season 2? Did you think the show was necessary? Did you like the way it turned out? Are you a fan of Miranda Sings? Love to hear your thoughts and all that stuff. And if you don't know the character Miranda Sings, I'd say get into this. This is a good way to get into her character, definitely. I will definitely say that. But that's my review. Hope you all enjoyed. We'll see you guys in my next, which will be for the season premiere of the final season of The Vampire Diaries, which I really hope this impresses me. You guys know how let down I was last season. I really hope we are not in for a repeat of last season. Hopefully they get their shit together this season, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.